Broadcasting the boisterous part of the fastest game in the world. So strap on your lids, lace them up, and take your tarps off, boys. You're listening to the BarnChirpers Hockey Podcast. Take a lap.
Let's clap it up for a shirtless Joe, ladies and gentlemen.
Clap it up, boys. Tarps off. Tarps off. Yeah, just got some fresh tattoos, so I'm tarps off. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, then you can see half of my body tarped off and some fresh tattoos. So that's always fun, right? At BarnChirpers Pod, Instagram and Threads. We're doing a little playoff preview because at the time of this recording on Friday night, the playoffs, Justin, are starting tomorrow on Saturday. The Eastern Conference playoffs. The Eastern Conference gets kicked off tomorrow. But listen, I want to start with something else because this is going to play into our playoff conversation. So we mentioned on the show a few times that Justin and I played fantasy hockey in a league for the Tugnutt Cup. Mr. Ron PK FJ Tugnutt. I'm just kidding. I don't know what his middle name is. But so that just finished. And listen, it was a hard-fought season. All 10 teams played hard the whole entire season. Definitely everybody set their lineups the entire year because it takes 2 seconds to do. And the final two, it came down once again between the Hulkster, Dumpster Fire, Justin, and the Goon Squad, the Goons, me, Jay Steele, Joe Leone. And I had to finish the story. It was my story to finish. And wouldn't you know it, I did. I finished the story with a 5-5 tie. And I tell you what, I'm so proud of my squad for tying Justin and I guess winning the Tugnutt Cup this year for the second time now that I'm a champion in the Tugnutt Cup, because I tell you, they played so well. And again, I won with a tie. And the reason I won with the tie is because I beat Justin in the win-loss tie record by like 3. So that gave me the championship, I guess. But just obviously I'm being facetious if you don't know me. I'll lay the sarcasm on a little bit thicker next time. But listen, I did just want to give you congratulations, Justin, because you did win. You beat me last week 100% at the start of this week. You had me beat 6-4, and Yahoo Sports is so dumb for doing a 2-week championship. That is the dumbest thing in the entire world to me. There's no reason for that, because guys, even all-stars, go on streaks and then they maybe don't score or do anything for a couple of days. And I get that's the whole point of fantasy. You got to be able to manage your lineups properly and be the best at that. But 2-week championship is so freaking dumb. And again, you beat me in every single metric other than the first week. Last week, I had 6 wins, or excuse me, I had 5 wins. I literally only played one goalie this week, and I got Ned on Monday or Tuesday, whatever it was, and he got me another win. And then I didn't play any other goalies the rest of the week because you only had 3 wins. I was like, oh, well, because of the games, Justin's not going to have any goalies. So I already won this goalie matchup. And then I literally only got 1 extra goal last night by a guy I picked up, Gabe Velarde, that put me 1 point over in the point goals. But you beat me in every single metric, Justin, every single one. So you are the champion of the Tugnutt Cup. I tip my hat to you. You beat me fair and square, just like you did last year. And I told you this morning on text, if this was a money league, which I'm glad it wasn't because even less teams played this year than last year, I would give you the winning because I did not beat you at all. So you have the floor, and then I have something else to say about the Tugnutt Cup. Please.
I was looking at the numbers last night, and all I need, like you said, you got a goal yesterday. I think you got a goal from Kaprizov, and then, like you said, Velarde that put you ahead. Well, it tied you and then put you ahead in the category. So I was like, all right, well, I've got Dry going tonight. And then, as I mentioned, this is a total excuse, but this is literally what happened. I didn't have my phone. So I didn't know that Dry wasn't playing. If I would have known that Dry wasn't playing, because when I actually looked on the schedule or my lineup on the laptop, he didn't have the O next to his name yet. So I was like, well, Dry's going to play, right? If he wasn't, they'd already have the O, right? They didn't. And so I picked up a defenseman that didn't. Right. He got me a couple shots. Like our shots were close. So I was like, well, let me put on the pressure on shots, try to keep that category. And my thought process was, I think if we tie, I should still win because my regular season record was better. I finished in first. Yahoo, I guess, decided not true. Joe's ties were better
because you were first place.
Yeah, whatever, man. Like it is what it is. I mean, I will say this: I'm just happy that I got to defend the championship. I got back
Yahoo's the worst.
Yeah, I got back to the cup, and to me, that was the important part. I got to actually defend my championship. So that's cool. Like, I'm interested to hear what you have to say about Tugnutt Cup because I feel like it's probably something similar to what I'm thinking. So I'm interested to send it back to you on that.
Yeah, man. Again, I did not win. What's funny about this, and this is my last thought on the Tugnutt Cup this year. So I had a first round bye because I was second. The semifinals, I tied 5-5 with Kingsland, and I advanced because I had a better record than they did. And then I tied you, and I technically won the championship. Just call me the Washington Capitals, Justin, because I got into the playoffs, and then I tied, and I basically got 2 shootout losses, but I won the championship that way, and that's basically how the Washington Capitals got the second wild card spot in the East.
They were the only ones who wanted it, so. Well, speaking of your Caps, do you want to start there?
The only ones that wanted it. Jesus. Yeah, let's start there. So the Capitals, wild card 2 in the East, are going to play the President's Cup winning New York Rangers. Woof. Listen, I said this in the text. Like, I do think if Chucky can stay hot in net, and if they somehow can manage to score 4 or more goals, they'll win this series. But if they have a regular, like they've played almost all year, by trying to win by 1 goal, good. I mean, I think the Rangers will wipe the floor with them if that's the case.
I feel like, to your point, this is very similar to the Rangers Devils series. Like, I like this Rangers team better than last year's Rangers team, but huge caveat: they're President's Cup winners because the rest of the Metro was hot trash. Like, it was in shambles all year. Like 8 points from sweeping the Devs. They split with your Caps. I don't hate this matchup for the Capitals at all. I think your points are super salient. I think they're right on point, but I think it's closer than most people, most pundits probably think. I think the Caps match up really well with both the Bruins and the Rangers. But I think, to hammer home your point, do the goal scorers show up? Can they light the lamp? If they light the lamp, they win. And because the Rangers aren't going to have a problem with that. So maybe that's oversimplifying it, but I really think that's what is going to matter. Do the goal scorers for the Caps show up? If they do, I think they beat the Rangers. Period.
Yeah. With that said, I mean, this is a total homer pick, but this Capitals team is very Florida Panthers like from last year, getting hot at the right times, and they sneak their way in. So this is a very homer pick, but I'm gonna obviously this is lying on everything I just said. If Chucky stays hot and the Caps can actually put some goals in, they can definitely win this series. Homer pick totally, but I'm going to say Caps in 7.
No, I'm right with you. I think it's Caps in 7.
Period.
I think that they can beat this team, and I feel like it's not quite nightmare scenario for the Rangers, but it's pretty close to, because it is every year the President's Cup winner struggles in the first round. They go in overconfident and they don't get it done. And again, yes, the Rangers have been a good hockey team this year, but I don't think they're as good as their record shows. I think the Metro was just bad. And they took advantage of that, and good for them. That's hockey. But I got Caps in 7 as well.
For sure.
Period.
Moving on to one of the games tomorrow, game number 1, the New York Islanders, who took 3rd in the Metro because nobody else wanted it, basically, take on number 2 in the Metro, the Carolina Hurricanes, the hot Carolina Hurricanes. This is the same first-round matchup as last year, and I'm actually pretty excited for this one because obviously the Islanders are the same guys, but with Patrick Waugh behind the bench, they definitely have a different gameplay. And I said this a couple months ago when Waugh came on, that the Islanders played differently. And the backup, Semyon Varlamov, has actually played better than Sorokin has. So that's interesting to see. That's definitely a piece to the puzzle there. Do they have a chance? I don't think so, because this Carolina team is different now. Kuzi has fit in very well in Carolina. Jake Gensel and Sebastian Aho are just kismet, honestly, on that line. Jake Gensel, spending all his time that he spent around Sid the Kid, is being able to feed passes that he shouldn't be able to. This happened a lot on Sebastian Aho's line. So, I mean, I'm just going to say Hurricanes in 5.
All right. I mean, just to differentiate our picks, I'm going Hurricanes in 6, because I do think that this Hurricanes team is just better than the Islanders. They just are. I don't think it's sweep. I do think the Islanders can get 1 or 2, but I don't want to just say the same thing for every matchup. So I'm going to go Carolina in 6. Period.
All right, well, let's have you go first then for Florida, the Atlantic Division winning Florida Panthers versus wild card number 1 in the East, Tampa Bay Lightning. What say you?
So this is, I've been using the words nightmare scenario a lot the last couple of weeks when it comes to the playoffs, and I don't know if this is necessarily nightmare scenario for Florida, but this is a terrible draw for them. Like this is about as even as it gets. I feel like Florida has almost everybody else in the East's number. But Tampa, I feel like Tampa's one of those teams you just can't discount, they're just well coached. They have good, solid veterans. And if Vazzy is even half Vazzy, then you've got a good series here. My inclination is, as hot as they were, as good as their deadline was, is to stick with the Panthers. My question is it 6 or is it 7? The first number that came to mind was Panthers and 7, so I'm gonna stick with that. Panthers and 7. Period.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, this is the worst draw that the Panthers could have wanted. Much rather would have played the Toronto Maple Leafs for sure. Tampa Bay, we said this all the time, Tampa just needed to get in the playoffs. Tampa Bay literally held the first wildcard spot the entire year. The entire year. They didn't move up in the Atlantic. They didn't move down out of the wildcard. They literally held this wildcard spot the entire year because all they need to do is get in. That's it. I truly feel that they just played mid all year. And of course, Kucherov won the Art Ross with, he was going crazy with how many points he scored this year. And guys were right behind him too. Braden Point had a great year. Stammer, again, had a great year. But I truly feel that it was just like, okay, guys, just like do a 7. Play at a 7, and we'll get into the playoffs. That's all we need. Because Vazzy kind of played like between a 5 and a 7 ever since he came back. Not great, not necessarily terrible, like mid. And that's what Tampa Bay did all year. And now look where they're at. And now I will, if I was a betting man, which I'm not because I always lose, but if I was to be a betting man and win enough, I would bet that Tampa Bay is going to come out swinging against the Panthers in this series. And we're going to see a team that we've not seen the entire year we're going to see the back-to-back cup winning a couple years ago, Tampa Bay Lightning. This one is tough for me. I really want the Panthers to win this series, especially because Bob has played insane hockey for over a year now. And that is wild to say for Sergei Bobrovsky, that he's played consistently well for over a year since last year's playoffs. I really want to pick Florida here. My gut is telling me Tampa Bay, though. I hate that, but I think it's going to be Tampa Bay Lightning. I think this one's going to 7 as well.
If I can tag onto this point before we move on to the last matchup, to your point, like first of all, like it does feel like a coin flip, but to your point, Florida's cooled off. Like they were red hot at the deadline, going into the deadline and shortly after it, but they cooled way off. And we've seen this happen a million times. You go into the playoffs cold and you face a hungry team like the Lightning looking to prove, yeah, we just wanted to get here, and now we're gonna play real hockey, and that could be disaster. That could spell disaster for Florida. So yeah, it really is coin flip. So both of us have it 7, so it could go either way. Period. Delay. Wow, it's really bad. Period. Oh. Well, hello. We're not mentioning the elephant in the room. We're gonna take it over to Boston and Toronto in the first round. Joe, is this nightmare? Is it nightmare time for Toronto yet again?
I mean, I think it is, because you're about to play the 2 best goalies in the league over the last year. Like, the question is, not to mention that your stars never show up when it counts. I don't care how many goals Matthews scores. I don't care if it's 65, 69, 75, 107. He's not going to show up. I've been saying this for a long time. He's not going to show up. He's not going to do anything. Nylander's going to be the only one that shows up. Marner's not going to show up. Tavares ain't going to show up. Literally nobody's going to show up. Morgan Riley will show up, and Willie Nylander will show up. Nobody else is going to show up, and they're going to lose terribly because you're trying to play Ullmark and Swayman. If Boston learned anything from last year, they will do a tandem switch like they've done all year. If they do that, they will win easily. I'm going to say Boston in 5.
Look, man, I'm gonna give Toronto 1 game just because they do have goal scorers. I'm gonna go up 1, Boston in 6, but I'm just gonna hammer your same points. You saw, again, God, man, I hate to be Homer guy, but Devils hockey is mostly what I watched this year. So I watched the games against Toronto for New Jersey, and look what New Jersey was able to do to them with decent goaltending with Jake Allen in the net. They took 2 out of 3 games in the last month. New Jersey, who has looked pretty pitiful all year. I'm just saying, if they run up against halfway decent goaltending, they're done for. And you're not going up against halfway decent goaltending. You're going up against 2 of the best. So
exactly.
They won last year. Good for you. You got out of the first round. Nightmare scenario for you. You drew Boston, and I just don't see it happening. I don't see 4 wins happening for Toronto. Maybe if they're lucky, they find a way to push it to 7, but they don't have the heart to get that game 7 if it gets there. So to me, it's Boston, and to me, to echo your point, it's Boston in 5, but just to have a different pick, it's Boston in 6.
Yeah, and I mean, again, the other thing being that it goes back to the same conversation of you haven't shown me any different. So, like, until you do, I'm saying you're going to lose because you're a bunch of losers. You are a bunch of losers. You're one of the original 6, and you're the biggest loser of them all.
That's true.
Because you're a loser. Because you're Toronto, and you have Auston Matthews, and he's a loser. I don't care how many goals he scores. He's a loser.
Loser with a mustache. we're going to go over to the West now. And look, man, like there's a lot of nightmare scenarios in this first round for people. This is going to be a great hockey matchup. We talked about this one a couple weeks ago.
You know what I want to say before you even start this?
Sure.
So last year we talked about how the East was so stacked last year, right? And not that they aren't this year, but the West is definitely the better conference this year.
Easily.
So much like last year, when the East beat the crap out of themselves, by the time the Panthers got to the Cup final, everybody was hurt and they got gentlemen swept, right?
Yeah.
Or everybody was beat up. I mean, in Florida's case, they were hurt. But I think the way that it looks, I feel like it's going to be the inverse. Like, you know, I know I picked Vegas at the beginning of the year to be Cup champions again, because again, until they show me any different, right? I didn't pick them at all last year. But this year, it very well could be an East champion, because I think the West is just going to beat the crap out of each other.
And I mean, that plays perfectly into this first matchup, because like I said, is this a nightmare scenario? It's the defending Cup champion Vegas Golden Knights in a wild card spot against the Dallas Stars. What do you think, Joe? Like this could be the series to watch in the first round.
I hate this for Dallas because they put together such an amazing season this year. They were in control of the Central most of the year. I mean, Winnipeg had their shine, but Dallas pretty much had the Central locked up the entire year. And kind of quietly too, because we didn't really talk about the Stars that much this year. They quietly just had a dominating season. Ottinger wasn't necessarily the same as he has been, but he was decent. Wedgwood stepped up, and they were, I think, 2 points out. I mean, I'm using my phone right now to record. That's why there's no delays, so I can't look at stats. But I feel like Wedgwood, you know, he didn't get majority of the starts, but he had a great season too. He kind of really carried Dallas along when Ottinger was struggling. I believe they were only off by, I think, 2 points from being the President's Trophy winning teams this year. So I feel bad for Dallas that they have to match up with the Vegas Golden Knights, because it just sucks. It really sucks, honestly. Like, it'd be much better if they got like a Nashville, right? Or if LA ended up getting in that wild card spot, that would have been better for them. So, you know, Vegas has not been great since January 1st, but somehow, you know, Mark Stone is magically cleared to practice. He started practicing the other day. Tomas Hertl came back, which we knew he would. But again, yeah, it just sucks. It sucks for Dallas. I wish I could pick Dallas, but I picked Vegas to win at the beginning of the year, so I kind of have to pick Vegas. But really, I want to say Dallas, but I'm picking Vegas, and I'm going to say Vegas in 6.
This is one of those situations where, like, I agree with everything you said, and Vegas is that team where, like, just like you said, I picked against them all last year, and they kept making me look dumb.
Yeah,
but
yeah, both of us.
But I picked Dallas to go to the Cup at the beginning of the year, and I have to stay true to that. And I think hockey wise, this is probably the best matchup. Like, if you're only able to get eyes on one series, this is the one you probably want to watch. My gut says Vegas in 7. I'm going to go with Dallas in 7 because I picked Dallas to go to the Cup this year. So Dallas in 7.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, like I said, really, I do want to pick Dallas, and the bracket that I filled out on NHL.com actually does have I picked Dallas, but on this show, I said Vegas is going to repeat as champion, so I got to go with it.
It is funny, like, now that you say that, like, my West versus your West, like, one of us is going to officially be wrong next week.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yep.
Speaking of being wrong, and a team that took one game last year in the first round from the eventual Stanley Cup champion Vegas Golden Knights, the Winnipeg Jets soaring into the first round against the Colorado Avalanche. Again, talk about nightmare scenarios. Hockey-wise, this is outstanding, Joe, but Jets and Avs, who you got?
Well, so I just thought of one thing in the Vegas-Dallas series that I wanted to mention. And this goes back to the previous comment of where I said that the West, I think, is going to beat the crap out of each other. Think about Vegas's run last year. They beat Winnipeg in 5.
Yep.
Then they beat Edmonton in 6.
6. Yep.
And then they beat Dallas in 7. And then they beat Florida in 5.
Yep.
They had such an easy road, an easy road to get there. So, like, that's the most interesting about it, is at least if they're going to repeat again, they're going to have to really work for it this year. Anyway, but you mentioned Winnipeg and Colorado, man. So what you said, and I agree with the Dallas and Vegas series being, if you're only going to watch one series, I would say this one, because you have arguably the best goaltender this year, should win the Vezina 100% because of what he's done. Connor Hellebuck leading the Winnipeg Jets versus Nate McKinnon. And I don't ever want to count out Mack Truck or Cale Makar. But Georgiev, man, Georgiev has a under 9 save percentage this year. He has not been good. And I mean, Colorado did win the cup with a guy by the name of Darcy Kemper, who also had like an 850 save percentage during that run. So it's possible. But man, I just think that Winnipeg's going to be able to at least get over the first round hump this year. Hellebuck is playing out of his mind. They do got some scoring. It's just literally going to be, wouldn't you know it, can they keep up on the scoreboard? But I'm going to say Winnipeg. This one, I believe, is going to go the distance to 7. No.
Yeah. Again, I've been trying to pick, different from you, but that's how
it's hard to unless you just want to be wrong.
Yeah. This
I mean, Winnipeg be wrong too, but
yeah, true. But this Winnipeg team feels different, doesn't it, Joe? Like it feels different from last year's playoff team. It feels different from the team at the beginning of the year. Like, we wrote them off at the beginning of the year because we didn't know what was going to happen with Scheifele and with Hellebuck, but here we are. And at times they looked like the best team in hockey. Again, you talk about a team that was close, like really pushing. Winnipeg was definitely doing that. It comes down to that conversation we had weeks ago about Georgiev, and you just brought it up. Is he out of gas? And I mean, like, he hasn't even been great this year.
I mean, they just got lit up for 7 goals the other day.
Yeah. Like
against Winnipeg.
Talk about worst timing. I think Winnipeg doesn't necessarily look like a wagon, but it does, to your point, seem like they should at least be able to get out of the first round this year. So I'm going to echo your point and go Winnipeg in 7.
Well, also, you got to remember last year's Winnipeg team was wild card 2 team as well. So definitely moons better. And they very easily to the Winnipeg, talking about them not necessarily being a wagon. I mean, at one point this season, they definitely were, when they were on that win streak of 30 plus games with under 2 goals allowed. Mm-hmm. And then they kind of went on a little bit of a skid there, which I'm glad they did, because they kind of got that out of their system, I think, leading into the playoffs now. So yeah, but moon's better. They very well could have been contending for the President's Trophy if they didn't hit that skid. But to your point, like, not necessarily a wagon, but I mean a damn good team. So it'll be a good series.
Talk about skating on into the playoffs. We've both kind of put hey, this is the one you should watch. I think this is the one I want to watch most. This is the one I'm going to go out of my way to try to watch the most of. We got the Vancouver Canucks and the Nashville Predators. And again, nightmare scenario for Vancouver.
Yeah, it really is.
What a regular season they had. Nashville's been red hot for the last month and a half, or maybe even longer at this point. What do you think, Joe? What do you think, Joe? Vancouver was like top of the league most of the year, but
dude,
I like this draw.
I have love for both teams. Obviously, if you've listened to this show and you've heard Justin and I talk about our love for the Mustard Cats, and again, they're in the wild card 1 spot, but really they were so close it just so happens that Dallas, Winnipeg, and Colorado are also in the Central. If that wasn't the case, if the Preds were in any other division, they would have had a third spot for sure. I like both teams. I mean, Saros can steal you a game. The Preds showed that this year when they went on that 18-game point streak without losing. I love Vancouver. I would love to see them go far. This team has rallied around Rick Tocchet. But, man, you got more experienced guys on the Preds. I don't think there's a lot of playoff experience on the Vancouver Canucks side. I want to pick them, but I feel like you're going to pick the Preds. So I'm going to say, are you going to pick the Preds?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to pick Vancouver then. I'm going to say, just so we're different, I'm going to say Vancouver. I feel like, I've said this a lot, though. I feel like this one's going to go the distance as well. Going back to my point of the West beating the crap out of each other, I think this one, I would say out of any of the series, this one has the most opportunity to go to 7 games because the teams are just pretty evenly matched. A great goaltender, guys that can score, and they just got that Adam Copeland grit. I got grit,
Yeah, man. This is at least the second time I've said this is coin flip. This is coin flip territory. It might be homerism being, Nashville's kind of grown to be like a favorite for me. Something just tells me like there has to be that one big time upset. And to your point, I think Nashville has just that little bit more of experience than Vancouver does. And I think that's going to win it out. I got Nashville in 7. I just don't see, but I was about to say, I just don't see Vancouver doing it. That's not true. It's coin flip. It literally, you ask me tomorrow and I could think the exact opposite.
Here's another opportunity for me to dog on Auston. I don't show up when it counts, Matthews. When you have Ryan O'Reilly on your team, you already have an upper hand because he is arguably the most clutch NHL player potentially ever, truly, in my opinion. And yeah, he was on the Maple Leafs last year, but guess what? You can't be clutch if you don't have anybody else around you to, put the puck in the net when you make a clutch play. So when you have Ryan O'Reilly on your team, it's very possible that you can go far, unless you're the Toronto Maple Leafs and Auston Matthews. You're welcome.
I don't want to keep echoing points that we talked about weeks ago, but like we said weeks ago, like that was a sneaky acquisition by them. Like it didn't get talked about, and he just came to work and showed up, and
for a cheap contract too. I think like $4 million, something like that.
Yeah. And that takes us to another matchup of, this is probably the one I'm going to not watch at all, which is crazy because it's the top 2 players in the league, but they're playing LA. So it's the Edmonton Oilers and the Kings. Joe, how do you see this one going?
Honestly, I see Edmonton winning this in 5. I think they are done with the BS. This is the 3rd year in a row. And I think they're just going to stomp this LA Kings team. Stu really showed up this year. The backup, Cal Pickard, he's a solid goaltender as well. The one amazing thing about Connor McJesus, again, if we're talking about arguably the best players, like literally this guy can do anything. And last year when he scored 63 goals or whatever, right? They had this matchup, and we know what happened. They ended up losing in the second round, right? Mm-hmm. This year, McDavid changed his game. He wasn't scoring. He's like, okay, I'm just going to pass the puck. 100 assists. 3rd guy in NHL history to do that. I bring this up so I can chirp Auston Matthews again. Connor McDavid changed his game to bring his team from the 3rd worst team in the league to be number 2 in the Pacific. So that is a superstar. Okay, Austin. Yeah, you scored 69 goals. Great. Good for you. Awesome. What is your team going to do in the playoffs? Lose. Edmonton Oilers are going to beat the crap out of the LA Kings, and I'm going to laugh because of all the mistakes that LA has made. Bringing in PLD bag for $8 million, not spending money on a goaltender, even though I like Cam Talbot. Yeah, Edmonton in 5. That's the last thing I'm going to say about that. Like, Edmonton's just going to literally, I think, beat the crap out of them this time. Like, okay, we went to 7 last year. Okay, we're going to beat the crap out of you now.
Again, I'm picking the same way. I'm going to give them the sweep, though. LA limped to get there. Like, they looked really strong early on in the season, but they limped to get there. I don't know if they have anything in the tank. To your point, PLD he's been a bust. I mean, like, has he produced enough for his contract?
If he was getting paid $2 to $3 million, yeah, sure,
exactly. Like, if he was getting paid less, sure, yeah. But this is a guy you bring in to put in points, to score goals and get assists and lead the franchise. Nah, man, he has not done that, and I didn't see anything in Kings hockey this year that suggests they can overcome limping into the playoffs. And to the contrary, Edmonton got hot, 2 or 3 times this year to get to where they are?
Yeah. Funny enough, you said, how are they going to get into the playoffs? Get hot a couple of times. They did. Yep. They're like,
and they did.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, again, Edmonton's that team of show me otherwise, but I think we'll get to that conversation next round. I think they're done playing. Again, I'm sorry to completely echo your points. They're done playing around, and whether that means getting to the cup or not, that's still up in the air. But I think they want this round specifically done as fast as possible, and I think the Kings just aren't good enough to push them past 4 games, in my opinion. But maybe they do steal one and push it to 5. But I'm going Edmonton in 4.
Yeah, this is the first year probably, I would say, ever that I actually, in a way, am pulling for Edmonton to win the cup.
Yeah.
I like, again, seeing them go from whatever it was, 28th place, and then they end up number 2 in the Pacific. And again, McDavid changing his game to catapult his team, lead. What do you know? A captain leading his team. Where does that ever happen? Like, I love that. Absolutely love that. They essentially were an underdog this year at quarter of the way in the season. Like, oh, Edmonton's done. Nope. Guess what? So I would love to see them be successful, but I said I wouldn't say anything else about the LA Kings, but I want the LA Kings to go away. Like, just go away. You're old and you're tired. Kopitar, you've had a great career. Doughty, you've had a great career. Just go away. I want the LA Kings to go away. Like,
and get new sweaters. Your sweaters stink.
The sweaters stink, man. They're terrible. They're just awful.
So before we move off from the playoffs, leaving matchups completely out of it, like not thinking about who's playing whom, like which storylines intrigue you the most, and then there's a really sad story we're going to close it out with. But which storylines intrigue you the most going into this playoffs?
I mean, like I said, I think it's more so on the West. Like, I would say number 1 is actually Vancouver, Nashville. Like we talked about, being that they're very similarly matched. And then number 2 being that Colorado Winnipeg matchup. Essentially, everything I've said, like, is it true? Can Hellebuck bring this team along? Basically an elite goaltender versus a mid goaltender and a whole lot of scoring. So who's going to show up, and then I guess I'm picking 3. So Vancouver, Nashville, number 1, Winnipeg, Colorado, number 2. The third one is the actual Carolina Hurricanes. Like, I gave them props now. Like, they look like an entirely different team. So I've chirped them a lot about, they're going to do this, and then they're going to get swept in the Eastern Conference Finals because that's what they do. That's all we've seen. I'm really intrigued to see, can they put the hammer down and make this thing happen? Because you finally spent the money. I wouldn't mind seeing it. Can you put the hammer down and actually do something with this core?
The Hurricanes, to me, are the only interesting storyline in the East. Like, I like the Panthers team, but them as a storyline doesn't do anything for me because last year's story was better. Like
Sure.
I like this team better, but Carolina finally pulling the trigger on a big trade is interesting, and them looking good with that trade is super interesting.
Yep.
And pretty much, like both Washington and the Isles limped in, like they were like, I don't want it. All right, fine.
I don't want a spot.
And then, Toronto, I'm gonna always kind of root against, unless I mean, if they ever get it, I'll be like, okay, cool, they did finally. But
that'll never happen.
And I can't root for Boston. They're Boston. So there's just nothing in the East that is intriguing. Whereas every matchup in the West is interesting and is going to be really good hockey. So get eyes on those. And to your point, like that might whoever gets out of the East, it might benefit them the most. So
yeah, it might, because if you can get your series done quick, you got some rest time. Because I again, for the 8th time, I just think the West is going to beat the crap out of each other this year, and there's just going to be scraps to pick up for who's ever coming out of the East. There is one thing I want to say before we get to the sad news, and this is I'm chirping everybody that was chirping the Philadelphia Flyers for pulling the goalie in the game that Washington clinched the wild card. So the chirp is everybody's chirping the Flyers and Torts for pulling the goalie, which led to the empty net goal, which sealed the victory for the Capitals to clinch the second wildcard spot. Well, the scenario was Philly could get in if they won. But they had to win in regulation. So the game was tied at 1. Torts pulls the goalie to try to win in regulation.
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole thing.
That's the call.
While I am sad, I know I picked Pittsburgh to get in. I am a little bit sad for Sid that they didn't get in. They did everything they could to get in. They won their games. They did everything they could. And I'm also sad for Detroit because, man, they also did comeback wins to do everything they could to get in. And because, the empty net goal and the Capitals won in regulation, it killed those chances for the Pens and the Wings. And the chirp there is, oh, well, why'd you pull the goalie? You guys were already eliminated anyway, blah, blah, blah. Here's an idea. Maybe if your teams didn't suck and go on losing streaks and won a few more games, then you wouldn't be in the scenario that you had to wait on another team to do whatever scenario so you could get in. So shut your little mouth because your team sucked. So there it is.
Yeah, it's not a good look. Like I said,
the Wings lost 8 in a row when Dylan Larkin went out. 8 games in a row. That's on you, dog. That's 6 points that you could have got half of those and been fine and got in, but you didn't.
Secured, yeah. I mentioned rough call. You know what I mean? In the text thread, it is a rough call. Sure. You go for the win and it backfires. But what else is he going to do in that?
I know. Remember when a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, when I was like, I like Torts as a coach, but old boys club and that style maybe doesn't work anymore in this league with however you feel about it or not. I like that. Like, he's trying to win the game. He's a gamer. He wants to win. He's doing everything he can to win. Oh, we need to win in regulation, get in the playoffs. Okay, let's win in regulation.
Yeah, he believed in his guys.
That's the chance you take. Just like when Minnesota pulled the goalie in overtime because they needed the points.
Yeah,
you're trying to win, dude. You're trying to win. So, again, one more time, all you little haters for the Penguins and the Wings crying about your team not getting in the playoffs, not getting a chance to get in the playoffs. Maybe if you guys didn't suck, maybe if you didn't spend $10 million to bring in Erik Karlsson, who didn't do anything, maybe you could have won. Maybe. Same guys next year and lose again.
Yeah. Well, they're sad, they're crying. They're sad and crying in Arizona, Joe. It's official.
Yeah.
Did we make a mistake? Did we make a mistake getting invested in this? Because just last year, you and I spent a good 20 minutes before the Blink concert at Cap One chirping the crap out of the Arizona Coyotes.
Yeah, we did.
And here we are just 1 year later, both kind of really bummed out that the Arizona Coyotes are indeed moving to Salt Lake City.
Yeah, man. It definitely is heartbreaking to be invested in this team, and now they're gone. I guess one silver lining is that all the players that were Coyotes are still going to be playing. Like they're just going to be in Salt Lake. But yeah, man. But really comes down to Alex Meruelo just being a terrible, terrible, terrible owner. And he wasn't the only owner. There was other owners over these last 2 decades, and they were all just terrible. And actually, I believe it was Frank Saravalli reported today, or maybe it was Sportsnet, but there was a deal on the table from Gila River Casino where they used to play in Glendale. It was a 20-year deal on the table, and Meruelo turned it down. They could have been playing in Glendale at the Gila Arena for 20 years, 20 more years. But Meruelo said, nope, I don't want that. So Meruelo, not only that, dropping the puck in this case, like there's just so many things that went wrong in Arizona. I guess what also came out was they weren't paying their hotel fees. So hotels banded together around the league to demand that the Coyotes had to pay a deposit of the entire stay in a certified bank check because they weren't paying their hotel fees. So it's sad to see them go, but honestly, like, I'm glad at the same time, like, we can just kill this franchise to get rid of all the bad crap that's happened for 20 years. Like, just put it to bed. And rumor has it that if in 5 years they're able to build a NHL ready arena, then they can, have the Coyotes team back in the desert, because Meruelo does own the Arizona Coyotes, the logos. Essentially, all the records are going to die with Meruelo as well, because Utah, whatever they end up being, is going to be a fresh slate. None of the records are going to come from Arizona. So like Winnipeg, Atlanta, right? That it won't be that. So Utah or Salt Lake City gets to start fresh. So at least there's that. But yeah, man, it is sad, but at the same time, like, you know what? After this all has come out, I'm just like, good. Like, just kill it, because just get rid of all this bad crap. There's too much bad crap. And like we reported at the beginning of the season, remember when the league spent $200,000 to try to get people to vote yes to build an arena, and the city spent like $3 million for people to vote no? Like, come on, man! Like, come on. You can only blame Alex Meruelo and the ownership for this Coyotes franchise failing. Is what else?
Yep. And to your point, I want to hammer away, like, whenever this happens, the blame almost always gets laid on fans. And this is not the fans' fault.
No,
fans showed up for the Coyotes, and there was just only so many that could in a college barn.
Yep.
So they showed up, and it is a bummer to lose Arizona hockey. But as you could tell by my face, a lot of those things you said, this was the first time I heard it. Good riddance. Good riddance to bad ownership, because that is the thing that keeps happening. Bad ownership for the Atlanta Thrashers. That's why they're in Winnipeg right now. Bad ownership for the Arizona Coyotes. That's why they're in Utah right now. I would guess bad ownership in Hartford. That's why we have the Carolina Hurricanes. I don't know. I was too young to like really kind of clock what happened there, but I bet anything that that's what happened.
Same thing for the Deeks, why they're in Colorado, I'll bet.
So let's get this Utah team good ownership and get them up and running. And I would love to see the branding of the Coyotes back under good ownership, because clearly the relationship with those towns in Arizona was soured by the poor ownership.
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing too. If there is the opportunity to re-expand in Arizona, I hope it's not Mariuelo. I hope the league has enough, cojones, number one, number two, brain cells to be like, this guy screwed it up last time. Why are we going to let no, different ownership, different owner. But to the what you said about Utah, I guess on the first day that it was open for season ticket holders, 6,000 were sold. That was just reported today. And so right now they'll be playing at the Delta Center where the Utah Jazz play. That is a smaller arena. I think it only holds like 12,000 right now, but that means 6,000, like half of it was already sold out for season tickets. So that's great. And then they are building. So I think I remember seeing 2025, 26 season. It'll be ready to go. But I mean, again, it's still going to be a bigger barn than Mullet was. So I guess my only concern is what the team is going to be called, because I saw Saravalli reported some of the trademarks that were applied for is Utah Blizzard, Utah Fever, Utah Hockey Club, Utah HC, and I think there's one more that I missed. But all of those, I don't like any of those.
No, I mean, it's sad when Utah Hockey Club is the one that I'm like, oh, okay. That's not a good sign.
That's not a good sign, guys. That's not. So I hope we have something else. I guess really what I would love to see is a little more green in the league. I want to see some green. Do you know what the ECHL Manitoba Moose colors are?
Yeah.
I would love that color scheme. Purple and green.
Yeah.
I think that would slap. And why not call them the Utah or Salt Lake City Moose? Go for it.
Sure. Well, it's funny because the same color scheme for the Milwaukee Bucks in basketball. Yeah. Purple and green.
Yep.
I will never be against more purple in the league either.
For real. I like
purple.
Yeah, I would love to see some different colors. We have way too much red, white, and blue schemes, too much black alternates. Let's get some more green. Let's get some different shades of green. Let's go some forest, maybe some lime. I'm just going off the rails here now, but anyway, so a little bit of sad news that we end with, but I do think that it'll be a better, I guess the last thing I'll say about this, I think it'll be a better turnaround for especially like rookies like Logan Cooley, hell, even Clayton Keller, who's been suffering as an Arizona Coyote for his entire career, just getting treated like garbage. Hopefully he can actually experience what it's like to play in the NHL, considering he's been in the NHL now for 5-6 years, something like that. That's my really only hope, is that all those guys, Coyotes forever, will actually get to experience what it's like to play in the NHL. When they play a home game, it'll actually be a home game with good facilities, be able to stay at good hotels, have good meals, and good training. So that's what I hope for.
Well, we love you, our beloved Arizona Coyotes. We bid you farewell. Hopefully we see you in 5 years with good ownership. And might I put this out into the universe? The Phoenix Suns owner, Matt Ishbia, very wealthy man, willing to spend money, has mentioned that he's interested in looking into other sports. So maybe that's our way to get back. Yeah. So
sign him up.
All right.
With a purple and orange color scheme. I'm here for it.
Yeah, man. So
that's what the alternate cochina is for.
Yeah. You read about that, Jack. Yeah, all right, brother. I think that winds us down. You want to take us out?
Yeah, that winds us down. So everybody watch some hockey games, enjoy the playoffs. We'll be back with you for a recap, probably. We'll talk to you soon, though. So keep your heads up, play to the whistle. Stick taps and sellies, boys. Clap it up.
Yeah.